As many people will know, Congleton's nickname is Beartown, a moniker that it earned in the 1620s when the people used part of a fund that was being saved to buy a Bible to acquire a new, more aggressive bear for use in bear baiting. That got me to thinking, what are some of the other famous bears in history? So, first up, in what might become a mini-series, is the story of Wojtek, spelt W-O-J-T-E-K, the soldier bear. The story begins in April 1942, when the Polish armed forces in the east left the Soviet Union bound for what was then Palestine. On the way, when they were close to Tehran, the soldiers encountered a young Iranian boy who had found an orphaned bear cub about 8 months old. To cut a long story short, the Poles took pity on the bear and bought him from the boy for the price of some canned meat, chocolate and a knife. It didn't take long for the bear to adapt to life among humans, displaying extraordinary gentleness and intelligence despite his growing size and strength. In August, after 3 months of being raised on condensed milk fed to him from a vodka bottle, the bear was donated to the 22nd Artillery Supply Company, which was part of the Polish Second Corps. It was at this point that the soldiers gave the bear the name Wojtek, which literally means joyful warrior stroke soldier. Wojtek seemed to enjoy life in the army. He wasn't long before he was emulating his comrades by drinking beer, cadging cigarettes, which he ate rather than smoked, and even taking a coffee in the morning. That was on top of his basic diet of honey, fruit and marmalade. As far as he was concerned, he was a soldier, like any other, and he did what the other soldiers did. He also learned to march on his hind legs and salute when greeted. Disaster loomed, however, when the Polish Second Corps was reassigned to fight alongside the British Eighth Army, otherwise known as the Desert Rats. This required them to be ferried from North Africa to Italy, and regulations for transport shipping at the time forbade the carriage of mascots and pets. Faced with the horrific prospect of giving up their new friend, the Poles came up with an ingenious solution. Wojtek was formally enlisted in the army as a private in the 22nd Artillery Supply Company. Issued with his own serial number, paybook and rank, the bear lived with the other men of his unit, either in tents or a special crate. Wojtek's crowning moment, however, came in Italy at the Battle of Monte Cassino in 1944. The area was dominated by an historic hilltop abbey which had been founded in AD 529. Coming under intensive bombardments, the Allies assumed, incorrectly as it proved, that the abbey was being used as an artillery spotting post for directing fire onto their positions. As a result, some 1,400 tons of explosives were dropped on the 15th of February, reducing the famous landmark to rubble, which the Germans then occupied as a very strong defensive position. As part of this offensive, the 22nd Artillery Supply Company was tasked with keeping a constant supply of shells to the guns near the front line. Travelling in the same trucks as his fellow soldiers, Wojtek found himself in the thick of the action. At first, he was terrified of the huge explosions, with reports suggesting that he went to hide in a nearby tree. Before long, however, he returned to the trucks. He'd been watching his friend struggling to carry the heavy ammunition boxes up to the guns. Overcoming his fear, Wojtek went to help, easily transporting boxes that needed 2 or 3 men to carry. Though there were those who thought the story no more than fanciful morale-boosting propaganda, there was at least one documented case of a British soldier who witnessed the event, with some astonishment it has to be said. As a result of his bravery and tireless service, Wojtek was promoted to corporal, and no doubt rewarded with several bottles of beer and packets of cigarettes. After the war, the Polish unit was shipped to Scotland, where they were later disbanded in 1947. With no home or family, Wojtek was donated to Edinburgh Zoo, where he lived out his days until his death in 1963. During that time, many of his former comrades would visit him, where he would respond happily to being spoken to in Polish, not to mention chomping on the cigarettes that the men would throw to him.